at the end of the day, you have to put the work in.
Yeah.
The work comes in between the sessions. You know what I mean? The sessions are where things are revealed and the blind spots are seen, but it's the in-between. It's like going to a dentist, right?
Yeah.
You go to a dentist every year. Well, the dentist isn't going to brush your teeth and floss your teeth every day, right? You're going to do that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, if you don't, a year from now you go there, don't be surprised if you have some cavities, right?
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Best You interview series. It's Gary here again. Thank you as always for taking the time to join me today. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Coach Shawn Bradbury, who is here to discuss his journey and inspiration to help middle-aged men focus on authenticity and personal growth. Shawn focuses on empowering the person to support them to be the best person that they can be for their children, for their family, and for their community. And Shawn's inspiration for this was becoming a single dad and the journey and path that took him on to get him to being comfortable with his own truths that he had to face. And we're going to get into that as the interview goes on. And how I met Shawn was actually quite interesting. We're going to talk about community today, and this is the power of networking and the power of community in and of itself. A mutual friend of ours, Lloyd, who was a previous podcast guest, Lloyd Hecht, and he had said, I have a friend who is interested in coming on your podcast. And at the time, things have changed and we'll get into that. At the time, he said he's a single dad's coach. And I said to Lloyd, well, I've been a single dad for 14 years. Maybe I should just interview myself. And then I think that would be a worthwhile podcast. And we had a bit of a laugh about that. I had a chance to meet Shawn prior to recording, and he does way more than that. And we're going to get into that. But the power of the mastermind community, which is the platform that we mutually use, has been incredible in terms of getting guests and understanding the journeys and the paths of other people. And I'm delighted to be able to welcome Shawn onto the show. Shawn, thanks a million for joining me today.
No, thank you so much for having this platform. This is beautiful. And I love the fact that we have a lot of commonalities in understanding masterminds and communities, so we can really touch upon that, because this is in itself a little one-on-one mastermind right here, right? So yeah. This is what I love. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. So as I like to do at the beginning of each podcast is just to get a little bit of a feel and flavour for the journey, specifically your journey that inspired you to getting to the point where you're looking to coach middle-aged men to focus on their authenticity and their own personal growth.
Yeah, it's really been based upon my journey to get here. Through most of my life, I've worked for corporations and for somebody else, right? And it wasn't until almost hitting 50, because I'm 57 now, that my journey really started later in life. And I've always been interested in personal development, psychology and such, but I never pursued it for many reasons. But as things went along, I really started, once I did my core 100 with Tony Robbins, like when I was around 50. That was kind of my first dive into putting some money into me, paying the money to get the course, to do the work. That was really putting kind of my money where my mouth is, kind of like taking the jump, to try something new, and knowing that Tony's just phenomenal. And that's kind of where it went off from. But prior to that, my whole life, I've been hard on myself. It's like I always thought like I wasn't enough. I was a people pleaser, and people pleasing and authenticity do not go hand in hand. When you're pleasing other people, when you're putting on different hats, when you're becoming like a chameleon to fit in with all of these groups, there's no authenticity there. I don't know if you've ever kind of experienced that, even on a small level of people pleasing. It's draining after a while too.
Yeah, for sure.
So it kind of took me into, I had this dream of coaching. I didn't know what it was, and I wasn't quite sure even. It felt even weird calling myself a coach because I hadn't really defined it myself. So I went through different iterations and everything, but the clarity didn't come until joining Mastermind and knowing I needed a community and a blueprint and support.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know what it meant to technically be a coach or what that looked like. So that's kind of how I started this journey into being in the right place, the right community, following the right blueprint, working on myself, and then realizing if I can get to here, I would love to help other people. So pretty much I serve the person I used to be. And of course, we're all a work in progress, right? I mean, no one's going to really ever hit that finish line. But as long as you're running the race, as long as you're on the journey, I really think that that's the important part.
Yeah, I love that. It's a lot of that resonates with me. That's one of the reasons that I too selected the mastermind platform in terms of, the blueprint, a repeatable process, the opportunity to contribute to that process, help make it better over time. I'm sure if you think about your time in terms of the offerings, the quality, the delivery, the access and such, it evolves over time as we do as humans, as you mentioned. And that collective, I love that you mentioned the investment in yourself at the very beginning, where eventually, for a variety of reasons, you hadn't, and there's learnings from that, but no point in looking back with any lament or guilt or anything now. It was part of your journey to that point. But that you make the leap to invest in yourself, you look around to find something that's a good fit for you. Didn't sound like 100% you knew exactly where you were going to go, but you knew that you needed some sort of help and support. And then you get yourself into a community that has both community-based social learning, where you're learning at the same time as other people and feeding off of the learnings that they've got, and that you're able to follow this in principle and actually technically backed process to be able to say, I can now do this, at scale if required, and help other people. And those are the background things, Shawn, that a lot of people don't know and understand that goes into the ability to be able to put yourself out there and say, you know what, I was a people pleaser. I struggled with my authenticity, I struggled with being honest with myself to a certain point, and then I did something about it. And then, and then now here you are, and you're serving the community that is most meaningful to you for right now. So like there's a lot to that journey, of course, but parts of the main thing being authenticity and self-honesty. How did that manifest itself into taking it from internal to looking to help and serve external?
Well, that's a great point, because for the most of my life, it was I was looking outside myself for everything, jobs, relationships, all of these things. So everything, I never really went after a lot. Stuff kind of fell into my lap, jobs, relationships. So I never went after anything because I didn't really have the confidence in myself. Like I never felt I was enough to go after something, even when I got good at my job. And I remember one of my bosses right above me, one day he goes, "You'll have this desk, you'll be here soon," because I was kind of his second in command type of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I won't. I just couldn't envision myself in the desk.
Yeah.
And I even got that position and still struggled with being in that position.
Yeah.
So it was just really a lack of just still being outside myself. I think one of the big turning points is just life giving me the same lessons over and over again, to the point where something just had to change. And because it's like I wanted more, but I didn't know how to get more.
Yeah.
I was around people, but I was kind of like on the periphery sometimes. It's kind of like you got the nucleus here of maybe work or friends and stuff, and I was kind of on the perimeter here. So I needed to find a community. And once I kind of hit like the hard stop a few years ago, where I'm like, okay, things have to change, I started assessing where I was at. Especially one of the big things was like my boundaries are horrific. I had no boundaries. Like I said, I was a people pleaser, saying yes to everything. And the hardest thing I had to realize is that being a nice guy, you're not an honest person, because you're not, first of all, honest with yourself.
Yeah.
And you're not honest with everyone else around you. So there is no authenticity in that whatsoever. So the world's never seen the real me because I've never shown the real me.
Yeah. And how did that journey manifest itself for you? Because I think there's a lot to unpack there, and one of the things I would absolutely weigh in on is if you continue to get taught the same lessons and don't actually take the learnings from the lessons, then if you keep doing what you've always done, you'll get what you always get. And
Right.
that's those are kind of cliches that we will band around in the community because it's true. It's not fable or made up just for kind of jazz purposes or anything like that. And I wonder how much of this becomes a male thing where there's a propensity to kind of appear like you've got it figured out, to have that
Mm.
level of confidence that you're in control, you have it all figured out, you know where you're going and you know how to get there. When the whole conversation, if and when you sit down to actually have it with yourself, is I don't really know where I'm going. I don't really know who I am. I don't really know what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and who I'm even doing it for, and whether that's actually worth it. And so, how did that come to pass? Like, how do you get to that point where you have that realization? And then the second part is, how do you help other middle-aged men come to terms with the fact that they are as there can be as lost, insecure, uncertain as anyone else on the planet at any given point in time?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you're right, there is a lot to unpack there. I think when I hit that hard stop and I'm like, things just have to change. I think part of the catalyst was I was working on myself. I had joined Mastermind. I was stopping watching TV. I was listening more to audiobooks, podcasts, and things like that, really feeding my mind,
Yeah,
working out, doing all of these things, really trying to elevate myself. But I also went to an extreme. Sometimes you can like go to an extreme, like you love something so much, you do it all the time.
yeah,
So I kind of went a little too overboard and I
yeah,
kind of had to pull myself back. But one of the big turning points was evaluating who was I talking to, what were we talking about, and where were the conversations happening. And I realized that conversations I was having were not serving me. They were very low level conversations. I was working a part time job and there was a lot of complaining and gossiping and bitching and stuff. And it's just like, I'd walk away going, oh my God, I can't do this.
yeah,
And so one of the biggest turning points was when I'm like, I need to find something. And a friend of mine reached out to me around the time I was just looking. And he's like, hey, I'm going to start a coaching circle. Do you want in? And I'm like, I didn't really know what a coaching circle was,
yeah,
but I knew him. And I'm like, I am in. I'm like, this is the sign. I truly believe I asked for it. I put it out there. And I'm like, let's do it. We'll figure it out. Let's do it. And that was wonderful. It really brought out, like, I was with a core of 4 people and we met every 3 weeks. And we just had these open, wonderful conversations, very authentic, very supportive. And that was kind of like, it showed me what I was missing. It's kind of like when you go to a store and there's samples, right?
yeah,
And you try a sample and you're like, this is good. Now I want the whole sandwich. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Or the whole meal or whatever it is. I'm like, this was the sample I needed. And that kind of ended because life happens and we went our separate ways. But then I found Mastermind and it just kind of ballooned from there as far as community goes. And then also a major thing, getting back to your point, was just being honest with myself as to what is working, what is not working, and really taking a look at it instead of looking at the bright side and seeing the other side and going, I can live with it, not looking at it honestly. And that's burned me most of my life because I wasn't following my intuition. I wasn't trusting my gut instincts. And if I had been honest in many situations, they wouldn't have happened the way they did.
yeah,
But I also do believe I had to go through those trials and tribulations to be where I am today.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. So you're now in the process of providing coaching services to middle-aged men to try and get to a spot where they have that genuine honesty with themselves and others and that authenticity and they're navigating the way that they want to navigate through life. How do you help them get from that spot that might not be completely analogous to yours in terms of people pleasing and
Mm.
such, but to get to that spot where you're saying you need to do this introspection, you need to be honest with yourself, you need to face the answers that you're going to face before we can move forward. How does that manifest for you?
Yeah, I think it's a 3-step process. I came up with these 3 A's: awareness, alignment, and action.
Right.
So just awareness, once again, looking at your circumstances and really evaluating what is going on and really what is working and what's not working.
Yeah.
Once again, it's the honest conversation. It's sitting with yourself or with somebody else and figuring out, how do I feel about something? How do I truly feel? Because a lot of times we just neglect our feelings and we just choose to suck it up and stay the course because we're afraid of the unknown.
Yeah.
I mean, how long have people stayed in jobs they don't like, relationships they don't like? Why? Because the unknown is too damn scary.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, and I think truly what happened with me is the unknown became less painful than the current situation I was in.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we have to reach that point. But the thing is, you don't have to reach that point. That's like the point of crisis.
Yeah.
That's when it's like, I'm backed in the corner. I got to do something. And it's so much easier to get to that point prior to that point.
Yeah.
But I think we convince ourselves that things will be okay. I can handle it. So we just kind of stay status quo.
Yeah.
And so once you kind of dig what's going out there, then it's kind of aligning with, what are my values? Because I had to really take a hard look at my values. Like, I didn't really have non-negotiables. If I had a lot of non-negotiables, like I said, there's a lot of things that probably wouldn't have happened in my life.
Yeah.
So I think if you look at the non-negotiables and then you figure out, what do I need to take away from my life? What do I need to subtract from my life to let go? And then what do I need to bring in? And once again, it was kind of like I had to let go of those low-level conversations, and I had to find meaningful conversations. I had to find higher-level conversations that I could truly engage in. So it was just finding those things, and then from there, it's all about action. And if you've been part of Mastermind, it's all about taking action.
Yeah.
And truthfully, that's probably the hardest part, because at the end of the day, you have to put the work in.
Yeah.
The work comes in between the sessions. You know what I mean? The sessions are where things are revealed and the blind spots are seen, but it's the in-between. It's like going to a dentist, right?
Yeah.
You go to a dentist every year. Well, the dentist isn't going to brush your teeth and floss your teeth every day, right? You're going to do that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, if you don't, a year from now, you go there, don't be surprised if you have some cavities, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The awareness, I love the 3 A's, and so simple, everyone in terms of concept would absolutely understand what that looks like. And recently I did a social media video talking about awareness versus interest. And, the process of investing in yourself, the process of understanding what coaching is and what each of the roles are in terms of the client and the coach is very, very important. And I think more and more so over time, there is a genuine awareness that coaching is a thing, it's important, it's effective, it's impactful, and it's not going away. But that bridge to getting interest and saying, tell me a bit more about that. I don't know what your experience is like, but I know my experience is with many people, they are saying, I am genuinely interested in this. As soon as I get to this point, as soon as I get that next promotion, as soon as I move house, as soon as the kids are in university, as soon as, and then what you get to is exactly what you mentioned earlier. You get to that breaking point, or that point where you then have to arrest some sort of fall or some sort of catastrophic situation or catastrophe. To say, I need to do something and I need to do it right now. And then the funny conversations that I have is someone will come and say, I need to fix this thing right now. And I'm like, okay. And they'll say, how long will it take me to fix it? And then I'll say, how long did it take you to create it? And they're kind of like 35 years. And I'm saying, well, it's not going to be done in an hour. then. Is it going to take 35 years to fix it? Of course it's not. No, it's not.
Right.
But, the absolute understanding. And I think it's kind of back to what you mentioned earlier in terms of, facing your fears or the unknowns. When the unknowns actually reveal themselves, and when you get a chance to analyze them and study them and then realize what they're telling you and what actions you have to take, it is less onerous. It is less daunting because now you know, and people can put up with anything as long as they know what it is. But there seems to be this propensity for people just to kind of say it's an itch, and I scratch it every now and again, but it's not super, super bothersome right now. And I just have other areas of focus, and it becomes a challenge to say you could be more settled, more content, more efficient, more rested, more clear, more happy. Your relationships would be enhanced, your community would be enhanced, your own sense of self would be enhanced. How do you and I was going to say convince, that's not the right word. How do you communicate the value to people that are kind of saying, I'm all right for right now, Shawn. Thanks, but no thanks.
That's a great question. I think a lot of times, I had to do that myself too. My journey, I started Mastermind back in KBB in the days, right? I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything. I've been part of Mastermind for years. It wasn't until after that coaching circle that I went to, because I'm like, I need to know the process, and I joined the MBA. And that's when, so it's a process. It's like, I think a lot of people want, but they may not be ready for it.
Yeah.
And it's all about questions too. You have to get curious. You have to even be like, this is great. If you're content with where you are, that's great. All the best to you.
Yeah.
But yet, if you stayed the same you were for now till 5 years from now, how would it be? If you stayed that way. And I think it's interesting that we're willing to suck up so many things because of the fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
Because there's not a lot of trust in ourselves. And I think a lot of times too, it's learned behaviors, right? It's all of these things. We're in our own little bubble. Like we grew up in this bubble, and sometimes we don't realize there's so much more out there.
Yeah.
And because you're stuck in the same friendships and friend circles and everything. And, that's how I was. Like, I didn't want to let go. It's like, I didn't want to miss out. But in the end, I missed out on me because I was so worried about missing out. So everyone else was moving forward. And once again, I will never blame anybody else. This is all on me. You know what I mean? It's like, this is my accountability regarding friendships, regarding relationships, all of that stuff. It's all on me that I did not do those things for a myriad of reasons, which I had to uncover myself. So the other thing, to go back to your point about coaching, I think a lot of people just don't understand what it is. And to me, coaching, I'd love to know your point of view on this too, how you view it too. Coaching to me is a win-win situation. That's it. It's a partnership.
Yeah.
It's coaches in my mind are like mentors, guiders, leaders. I don't know if guider is a word, but you guide them to it. And we're here to hold space. And I think, especially nowadays, I truly believe people just want to be heard. They want to have that space. They're not used to people listening to them. And if we can just get them in that space, especially with men, because a lot of men, the whole thing growing up and, don't talk about your emotions, don't cry, a lot of this macho manly persona that we've grew up in.
Yeah.
It just it just ties our hands to being the best person we are. So I don't know. It's an interesting aspect because I do believe that people want it, but for some reason they're still unwilling to make the investment. So what is your take on that? What's been your experience?
I'll start with the investment part. It becomes difficult. I've been doing a series on my social media over the last wee while, explaining the return on investment that that people can get from coaching. And it become the type and style of coaching I do is very much leadership, performance, life coaching, navigating the business world, helping the family. It's quite general.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, I don't have a hard and fast number where I say I coached Shawn to 10x his income in the space of 6 months. And if you're looking for 10x of your income in 6 months, come and speak to Gary Gillen. It's nothing like that, So
Yeah.
I've had to do some introspection based on feedback, based on my notes, and based on the testimonials that I've had from previous clients, to saying, you know what, this is the investment. I don't talk about the money, but for example, what would it mean to you to get hours back in your time that previously you spent fretting and worrying and chasing your tail, and you actually had it for planning and wellness and your own sorts of things. So it provides that little bit of clarity out there as well. But you're absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head there, Shawn, in terms of coaching is holding space for the client. It's sitting down with them and listening to them. And I'll tell you what I say to every prospective client and every existing client, or potentially past clients as well, is I'll say, I will listen to you like no one has ever listened to you ever in your life. I can guarantee you that, without even knowing the person maybe too well, or even at all at that particular time. And I will champion you. And by the way, championing you is not always applauding and saying, hooray for Shawn, Shawn was great. It could be giving you a kick up the arse every now and again and saying, that's twice you've said you're going to do that, you haven't done it. Do you want to have a talk about why that is and see whether we're ready to have that conversation? So it's one of these things. I think part of it is the literal speed of the world right now, where there doesn't seem to be, we know there is, but there doesn't appear to be the time to stop for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, whatever length the sessions would be, to just put yourself in the zone of view and try to clearly articulate your thoughts. And as you mentioned, there is work that has to be done in between sessions. So, if someone's expecting a session every 2 weeks to solve the problems with no work in between, what are you going to get if you have a salad every 2 weeks and then you have pizza every other night? Are you going to lose weight? Are you going to get your skin to look the way it is? Are you going to be able to walk up the stairs without falling over? Those sorts of things. So I believe I don't want to stop right now because I'm fearful of what I might find. I don't have the time right now to be able to do that. And based on the fact that I truly don't know what type and style of work I have to do, it sounds kind of onerous to me. So it's just not the right time. Okay, so are you content with, as your examples are, having the same types and styles of conversations each and every day at work, with going to negative spots and spaces with your existing community and network, limiting your opportunities because you can't see, just beyond your own desk and in the office because you're so furious that people don't do what you need them to do, whatever those things are. And it's not salesy. And if it sounds like that, it's not intended to do that. It's just reality. Yeah. You can insert 3 or 4 examples there within 30 seconds to say, well, you know what, this is a wee bit annoying, that's a bit boring, that's infuriating, and this I don't even care about that at all. So you get to that point of saying, is this okay? Yeah. Could it be better? Yes. What would it look like if it was better?
Right.
And so I think there's a pausing, there's a challenge with pausing. And then when you add all the other bits and pieces in terms of talking about yourself, in terms of being vulnerable, in terms of being honest with yourself, in terms of understanding where you haven't been and, and analysing information from the past, and then the work it's going to take to go forward, it does sound daunting. But when you say, for example, I want to get better relationships with my kids, okay, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about the relationship you have right now and how it's manifested itself and what do you need to do. And it's just, you know what it's like, that there's no one thing that has this monumental change where one day the kid goes, Dad, you've changed. You're back. I can't believe this. Thanks very much. It's all these incremental things. It's the switching the TV to the podcast or the book. It's the going for a walk and having a glass of water instead of, going to the movies and having a large popcorn and a beer or, whatever it is. And then
Yeah.
over time, these things compound themselves to give yourselves the space to move in there, so coaching helps with all that. And it's just trying to get that sweet spot of someone saying, there's an inconvenience enough already in my life or brewing, or it's absolutely coming at me right now and I need some help and support and opportunity to be able to try and combat that in a way that's authentic to me. So it's not an easy thing to do. And I don't know that I've helped the listener or the watcher or the viewer, I should say, in any way understand it better. But it involves work. It involves introspection. It involves difficult conversations, and it involves you doing something for you, which a lot of people are not overly used to doing. Certainly not from a genuine internal perspective.
I agree. It's much easier to look outside yourself. It's much easier to blame other people. It's much easier to not take accountability and to put the onus on somebody else.
Yeah.
I feel this way because of you. You are making me feel this way.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people I've talked to, and as we talk, they talk about everybody else but themselves.
Yeah.
Because it's so much easier to say they're the problem, they're the problem, they're the problem.
Yeah.
And people just don't want to take the onus, because I truly believe when they dig deep down, the truth will be uncovered, right? It'll present itself, and once again, it may rear something that's kind of like, okay, this is going to take work to either fix it or I'm going to have to move on.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to move on because I've done this for so damn long. This is now ingrained in my DNA as a habit, and I don't know how to do it. But the thing is, when you join a community and you see people that have done it, and this is, Mastermind's beautiful, but even beyond that, like, I go to these meaningful conversations at my library every Saturday for an hour and a half. We have different topics every Saturday. I look forward to that so much. If I can make it, I am there. That's in my schedule.
Yeah.
Because it's different people, different conversations. And from there, I joined a creative men's cohort a few weeks ago. I go there every Tuesday when I can.
Yeah.
And they actually take an hour, and it's quiet, and you work on something, whether you write, whether you draw, whether you paint, whether you do something.
Yeah.
And I used to draw as a kid, and now I've incorporated that back into my life. And that's something that's been missing for a while, because when I'm there, when I'm focused on that, I'm out of my head, and I'm just there. I'm present. And it has been such, it's been wonderful to have that back in my life. And then to also be around other men that are willing and want to do this.
Yeah.
And then we talk and share and stuff. It's like, I'm like, part of me is kind of like, where have you all been? But I didn't ever position myself to be in those rooms, because I wasn't ready to be in those rooms.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I saw the rooms and I just didn't know how to enter them.
Yeah.
It's because I had a hard time letting go of my current circumstances.
Yeah.
I was clinging on way too hard because of the unknown, because of like, what are people going to think? What if we're not that close anymore, or all these things happen to me? But then I realized I'm looking around at everyone else and they're doing what they need to do.
Yeah.
Why am I not doing what I need for me?
Yeah.
And my world has just opened up. I mean, if I didn't take the chances of, if I didn't choose to feel uncomfortable, if I didn't choose to feel vulnerable, if I didn't choose to try to be my authentic self, I wouldn't be having this conversation with you today.
Yeah.
Because there was a chain of events that brought me to you.
Exactly.
And that's what I really want people on some level to take away from this, is that you got to put yourself out there. And some things are going to work and some things are not going to work.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to look like an ass and make a mistake and fail.
Yeah.
If you fail, I grew up thinking failure was the worst thing in the world. You failed a test, you got a bad grade. You're a bad person, all of these things. But failure is such a teacher.
Yeah.
And you can try something. You may not be good at it, and maybe you don't even like it, but check it off the box and move on.
Yeah.
I just think we limit ourselves so much, and I did for so many years. And it's like, it's one of those things like you pull the veil back, you ring the bell or whatever it is, and you're like, I can't go back anymore.
Yeah.
It's like once again, I tasted that sample. I need that sandwich. I can't have the crappy sandwich anymore. It's like I want the good sandwich,
Yeah. Your eyes have
And
been opened.
yeah,
Yeah, and I love I mentioned it briefly in the bio, and it's been a theme of everything that you've talked about as well, Shawn, in terms of the power of community. And I'm glad that you mentioned at the beginning, this is a community. So if someone, when you say putting yourself out there, and they're saying, "Whoa, I'm not going to go on stage and do." The open mic night, or
yeah,
the karaoke, or whatever it is, for different types of styles of people. It could be just reaching out to someone that you admire in some way, or that you have some sort of affinity with, to be able to say, could I pick your brains for 15 minutes? I know you're really busy, but I really admire what you're doing. And I would love to just try and figure out if that's something that would be commensurate with where I'm at in my life and what I want to do. So community means a whole bunch of different things. And the analogy that I typically always use in this is, and great business leaders have said this, no one can do it alone. Steve Jobs didn't do it alone. Richard Branson hasn't done it alone. Larry Ellis didn't do it alone. Whomever, any business leader you could pick, and the analogy I use is the tennis star, which is a very individual sport. When they get the trophy at the end, and they're answering the commentator questions on the center court or whatever it is, they'll always look over to this and they'll say, I'd like to thank my team. And there are half a dozen people there, and there are people behind those people as well. They're the ones that have been lucky enough to have been selected to get into the box, but they have their dietitians and their sleep coaches and their strength coaches and their technical coaches for the actual craft of, say, tennis in and of itself. So that ability to know that you're not actually expected to do it
mm,
all on your own, and no one would. So if you go and say, I'm really struggling with this thing, the first question that someone might ask is, what have you done thus far to
right,
get to move to that next level, to get that promotion, to make that lateral move, or to start your business, whatever it is that your heart desires at that particular time. And if the answer is absolutely nothing, this is the very first uncomfortable action I'm taking right now. But if we were to chat in 6 months, the answer would be very different. That's absolutely fine. You have to start somewhere,
oh, exactly,
but if you've been saying, I've really been trying to write my book for 3 years and I just can't seem to get it going. Well, what have you been doing? Well, you know what? Not a lot. Okay, did you hire a coach? No. Did you join a writing circle? Did you research, techniques that would help you manage your time better and know and understand what type and style of writer you are? Well, no. I just have, every now and again, I'll pick up a piece of paper and I'll write something down. Okay, and again, no judgment from a
yeah,
coaching perspective. Okay, that's your journey up to this point. Let's make a different path for you going forward, so that you don't have to feel so bad about 3 potentially wasted years, and we can get you towards writing that book, to getting that promotion, to losing that weight, to repairing that relationship. And that's the power of community. So don't think of community as a vast amount of people. It can be, of course it can
sure,
be, and we're part of one in and of itself with Mastermind, and I'm part of others too. But it can be what you make it, and it could be a literal one-on-one conversation. It could be an online forum of some description. It can be whatever you're comfortable with being. So I really do feel that you genuinely buy into the community feel. It's great that you're joining these new communities, and I could feel your energy shift when you talked about them. The genuine excitement in there too. I think it's absolutely absolutely terrific. So one of the things that before we get to the last couple of questions that I like to ask every guest, is one of the things you mentioned earlier, was that you've made personal growth a regular part of your routine,
mhm,
which ended up being a catalyst for, as you say, the series of events that gets us an opportunity to chat now, that gets you the opportunity for the clarity and honesty and authenticity you have in your life. How do you go about with your clients and maybe people within your community, helping them know about it, see what it looks like, how it can be for them, and what the potential outputs or benefits could be?
yeah. First and foremost, I try to model it. I think that's important to do. You know, I need to show up first. If someone else is going to show up, they need to see me showing up. You know, So I really try to be, consistent with Facebook, with posting, with all of these things with my daughter. So I am a single dad, a single parent of a 17-year-old amazing daughter. And it's just showing up constantly. It's once I built this community a few months ago, it was, working on the framework. It's a foundation, right?
Yeah.
But it's showing up when even no one else is showing up.
Yeah.
That's the important thing. I think once you get the consistency, once you see the outcome of it, I think it's an easy sell to somebody else to say, this is what I needed to do to get from point A to point B.
Yeah.
I will help you to get from point A to B. And this is what it's going to take because I understand what it's going to take. It's kind of like, my daughter's adopted. So when we talked about adopting, there's so many things, even just having kids in general, you think about the money, how am I going to pay for this? How am I going to do this? All these things.
Yeah.
And so many things just stop us in our tracks because we don't think we can afford it, right? So if I had let money stop me, I would never be a dad. It's like we let these little hurdles or what we think are major roadblocks because we can't afford them. But it's almost like you can't afford not to do them.
Yeah.
Like if you wanted to be a dad that bad, you will find a way. Things will work out.
Yeah.
So I look at the same as coaching and in being that person. If you really want it, you will find a way to do it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I'm answering your question or if I'm going off a track, but I think it's also showing what are the results that I've received. What has been my journey. Once again, I guess it does come back to modeling it, to saying, these are the things I needed to do. Not saying that you have to do the same things, but you have to be, once I meet you in your space and where you're at, then there could become a plan. And once again, it's trial and error. It's like, not everything you're going to do is going to work.
Yeah.
But you're going to try something. If you don't have a starting point, it's like, once again, that hard conversation, the truth, that's a starting point.
Yeah.
And especially with men, I think this is a huge thing too. I guess a tip I would give a man is like, you got to give yourself a break. You got to give yourself some grace and kindness to yourself. I've made plenty of mistakes, but I can't dwell on the past. I just have to look at them as building blocks, as things I learned from.
Yeah.
Now, if the habit keeps changing and like it did for me for years, you keep repeating the cycle, then that's a problem. And but it's just, we're all on our own journey. And you have to come to the point where if you meet people where they're at and listen to them, support them and hold space for them, I think once they experience what it's going to happen, and the fact, I love what you said too, there is no time limit on this too, because if you've had this habit or whatever it is for decades, maybe your whole life, it's not going to go away in a week.
Yeah.
And just because we talk, it's the work in between that you need to do.
Yeah.
Because let me tell you, one of my biggest things I had to stop was I had to stop being a student and take action.
Yeah.
Because I could show you reams of notebooks, of piles of legal pads, with these incredible notes and all this wisdom. But if it's not put into action, it's useless.
Yeah.
I think Tony says it the best. Knowledge without action it's great to have, but there's nothing gained from it.
Yeah.
And I think, once again, that one of the hardest parts is people aren't used to doing the work.
Yeah. 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 If it hasn't been part of the routine, it hasn't been really part of their being for their life, especially beyond the school years and such, then it can become a bit alien for sure. This has been an incredible conversation for me and really reaffirming and eye-opening at the same time to be able to, understand why I went into this business. And it sounds like, our circumstances are somewhat similar in terms of, the ability to be able to say what I'm doing right now is not working. I'd like to do something else and serve with a greater purpose and such. So as I like to do with every guest, I take this opportunity to say this is called the Best You podcast. And I like to ask everyone, what regular practice do you employ that gives Shawn the best opportunity to be the best version of himself?
Realizing who I'm around, the conversations I'm having, making time for myself, putting myself first. It's interesting because I've never truly put myself first. And a lot of people, I think, have a hard time with it. They think that is a selfish act, but I don't, it's not, because you can't pour from an empty cup. It's like,
Yeah.
if I'm not being my authentic self, if I'm not being the best for me, then how is anyone truly going to know me? It's like, how am I going to differentiate between who I should be around and who I shouldn't be around?
Yeah.
So if my message is honest and authentic, then you may not like me. That's cool. That's fine. I don't like everybody. I don't, it's like, but at least you know where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
And that to me is going to be, I think, if people can be their authentic self through their values, their priorities, and the relationship first and foremost with themselves, it's just going to make everything better around you.
Yeah.
So I think just making space for myself when I need to,
yeah,
and experiencing things on my own. Like, I don't need to always do something with people.
Yeah.
That's probably a much longer answer to your question, but
it's great.
Yeah, I just think, we have a hard time just being quiet with ourselves, because there's so much going on, especially nowadays. There's just so much going on, and we're afraid to miss out. But there are times I think you have to go quiet, or even, like the term go dark sometimes to do your own thing.
Yeah.
And another thing I found too is stop sharing so much with everybody.
Right.
Like your goals, your dreams, and everything. Keep it not necessarily close to the vest, but I found that if you share it to everybody, then you have to explain it to everybody. Or some people just don't get it. And if they don't get your vision, then sometimes you start to doubt the vision. Share it with someone that you trust, who will understand who you are. And also, stop apologizing. A lot of people apologize for things that they don't need to apologize for.
Yeah.
They say they're sorry when there's no need to say sorry. And I just think it really erodes at who you are as a person. And it's just, once again, awareness to, what do you do? And the interesting thing is, when you find those communities, when you find those people who are like this level and you want to be at that level,
yeah,
they will turn around and they will pull you up and help you.
Yeah. 100%.
Because those people, they want you to succeed because someone helped them succeed.
Yeah.
And it's just, if you're in the right place, you're gonna find that ladder, and before you know it, you're pulling people up behind you, right? So you're like in this amazing, like, I don't know, I could picture it like walking a trail in the forest, right? And you're with your group or your tribe, and everyone's just helping each other. And sometimes you're gonna pass each other because that's life.
Yeah.
You get ahead of me, I get ahead of you, but it's all good. It's not a competition, it's all support, right? We're kind of in a flow together. But if you stumble, the person in front of you is going to turn around. They're going to pull you up, right? Yeah. And that's the group you want to be in.
Definitely. Yeah, couldn't agree more. Shawn, where can people find out more about you and your services?
So I do not have a web page, but you can find me on Facebook. Just my name, Shawn Bradbury.
Yeah.
So I have built a community. It is a private community. It's not on Facebook. It's not on any social media platform.
Yeah.
There is an app called 𝘀𝗁𝗃. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not.
I am, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if people are out there or not. I wasn't aware of it until I built my community. It's much like school in the same breath. So my community can be found in there. I originally just got a name change just to kind of really, really hone into what I'm doing. So it is called the Empowering Men's Collective. So that can be found under 𝘀𝗁𝗃. But just reach out to me on Facebook. I'd be more than happy to talk to you and support you.
Wonderful. Excellent, Shawn. This has been a fabulous and very enlightening conversation. I can't thank you enough for coming on the show today.
No, thank you so much for this platform. I truly love this conversation. Thank you so much.